All right. Welcome, Dr. Tom, to the Biohacker Babes podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with a couple of babes. Thank you.
We're just happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned before we hit record, like, that's classy, babes. We're like, yes, we'll take it. Thank you so much.
That's right. That's right. You know, I'm from the generation where that was a real compliment. Wow, what a babe. That was a compliment. So
I love it. Yeah, we chose it because there's like a sense of like empowerment and confidence, right? That
exactly.
we want our people to feel, you know,
well-rounded empowerment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Huh.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is such an honor to have you here today. We've been following your work for at least a decade, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
and you are a world-renowned expert on autoimmunity and wheat and gluten-related disorders, brain health, gut health, and you're really on a mission to share this root cause medicine that we share so emphatically on the podcast. We care very much about this, and
yes.
We're very excited to pick your brain and hear your wisdom, but we really want to dig into inflammation today. You mentioned, I was, watching all your stuff on Instagram, and you mentioned that 14 out of the 15 causes of death today are caused by inflammatory diseases.
Yes.
We talk about inflammation on the show a lot, and our audience is aware of it, but I think it's very common to feel overwhelmed. We know about the inflammation, but we're overwhelmed and we don't know where to start.
Yes.
So through that perspective, like, how do we get started to not feel this overwhelm?
Oh, really great question. Thank you. Really great question. So if you take a step back and you understand that 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases, everything except an unintentional injury, an accident, everything else is chronic inflammation. What that means is that the inflammation in your body has been going on for years while you felt fine. It's chronic. It's been there for a long time and you didn't have any noticeable symptoms. But by definition, when you have this chronic inflammation, you're killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. And you don't realize that it's going on because you feel fine. Yeah, I feel fine. Yeah, I'm a little tired today, but it's stress. It was just too much stress. So we try to compartmentalize when our bodies are not functioning at peak levels. We compartmentalize and justify, well, it's this, or well, it's that. Well, my kids are giving me all kinds of problems. Whatever it is that we think about, to not be overwhelmed by the feeling of, oh, I got another headache today. My gut stress is just too much stress. We try to not dismiss, but compartmentalize. But so if 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases, and I say this on stage to doctors all the time, stop talking about root cause medicine. There is no root cause. There are many, many causes that can contribute to a person's imbalance. There are many, and the goal is to find out which ones are affecting each individual patient. But there is a root mechanism in the development of disease. Well, what's that? It's inflammation. It's always inflammation under the surface while you feel fine. That's killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. And if you pull at a chain, the chain always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your reproductive system. Wherever your weak link is, that's where the chain's going to break. And the pull on the chain is inflammation. So I don't care if you've got the BRCA gene for breast cancer. I don't care if you've got the ApoE4 for Alzheimer's gene. It doesn't matter. It just means that's a weak link in your chain. It doesn't mean you're getting breast cancer. It doesn't mean you're getting Alzheimer's. Well, my mother had it. My grandmother had it. It doesn't mean you're getting the disease. It means that's the weak link. You pull on the chain, that's where it's likely going to break. We had a picnic yesterday, with new friends. He's a physician, came from Germany, and his daughter has an autoimmune mechanism go on, and he's a holistic doctor, knowledgeable holistic doctor. And his 11-year-old daughter, I think she's 11, she ordered a Coke, and she's got an autoimmune mechanism going on in her skin. And she asked me a question about health. And I said, well, you're asking me about health. Is it okay if I answer you? She said, yes, please, please. And I said, well, but you aren't going to like my answer. Are you old enough to be able to listen and not just block it out? And she said, yes, kind of proud, young, this German girl that just moved from Germany. And okay, what are you doing drinking that poison? You have an autoimmune disease. Every single sip you take causes more inflammation. It kills the good bacteria in your gut. More bad bacteria grow when you kill the bad bacteria. When you kill the good bacteria, more bad bacteria grow. 36% of all of the small molecules in your bloodstream are the exhaust of the bacteria in your gut. And she kind of looked at me and said, you ever exercise and your muscles sore the next day? She says, oh, yeah, yeah. And that's lactic acid, right? I mean, everybody knows it's lactic acid. Okay, drink some water and you'll be fine in a day or two. You just exercise, you produce more exhaust in the muscle cells than your body could flush out from the exercise. So you're sore for a day or two. Okay, good workout. Well, your bacteria in your gut produce exhaust, and it's over 1/3 of all the small molecules in your bloodstream. Why? Because they're the messengers that turn the genes on throughout your body. For every one message from the brain going down telling the gut what to do, there are 9 messages from the gut going up telling the brain what to do. The ratio is 9-1. And so these molecules, this exhaust from the bacteria in your gut that gets in the bloodstream, it goes up and it creates the balance or imbalance in your brain hormones called neurotransmitters. That the amount of brain hormone, they're not hormones, but for everybody to understand these neurotransmitters, just think of them like hormones. To create the balance, it's the messengers from the gut that, and the geek term is modulates. It modulates your neurotransmitter balance. What does that mean? It means it's got its hands on the steering wheel of how your brain's working. Those messengers come from the bacteria in your gut. So what percentage of people that have bouts of depression need to include in their protocols working on building a healthy gut microbiome? 100%. What percent of people with anxiety need to include in their protocols building a healthy, diverse microbiome? 100%. What percent of people with schizophrenia? And I can go on. What percent of people with seizures? You don't deal with the seizures. Of course, you try to reduce the frequency of this, of course, but the seizures are not caused by a lack of medication. In the journal Gastroenterology, they published the study, 50% of children with drug-resistant epilepsy, which means they've tried 3 different medications and nothing's working for them. 50% of them go into complete remission on a gluten-free diet. 50%. Well, why don't our neurologists look into this? Because it's published in a gastroenterology journal. And neurologists don't read gastroenterology journals. They read neurology journals. They don't know. They don't know, right? But my point is, you have to look at where are the triggers coming from that are pulling on the chain, that are manifesting in the symptoms that you would eventually get wherever your weak link is. It doesn't matter what the weak link is. This is the big kahuna concept. Where is my inflammation coming from? So from that perspective, if all of our listeners just start, when you're driving down the street, you've got some music on, driving down the street, all of a sudden you think, oh, I'm sore today. My knees are sore again. Why are my knees sore? Well, could it be that chocolate eclair I had for dessert last night, because I don't eat sugar much anymore. No, it was delicious. Well, wait a minute. You haven't had one in a long time. You don't eat sugar anymore, but now your joints are sore today. Your joints are sore because they're inflamed. So the question is, why are they inflamed? When you start training yourself to ask those questions and think that way, if you build it, he will come. That what happens is answers start coming to you. Well, could it be this? Or no, it could. Well, maybe it could be, maybe. So, but if you don't know to ask the question, you keep living in the world of taking the medications that help with the symptoms. Look, if you have high blood pressure, you better take the medication for high blood pressure. But you also have to look at where is the inflammation coming from that's causing the high blood pressure? You have to be looking at that. So every patient that comes to me on high blood pressure medication, I'll tell them, listen, make sure you call your doctor that gave you this prescription and ask them, can you monitor me, please? Because I'm seeing this doctor and I'm taking some vitamins, I'm changing my diet, I'm going to start exercising a little bit. And they tell me that I'm going to need less medication as my body starts getting healthier with less inflammation. I'm going to need less medication. If I don't cut down my medication, they tell me that I can get dizzy when I stand up because it's too much medication. And so I need to taper it down. Can you monitor me so I keep taking the right amount of medication and not too much? Every doctor will say yes to that because you don't sound like a nutcase. You don't sound like a fanatic. You sound like someone that's really trying. Well, I don't know that it's going to work at all, but yes, of course, come in every week and nurse will take your blood pressure. Something like that, right? But you've got to get out of. I like the videos of a dog chasing its tail. We think that's kind of a cute, funny thing, is chasing its tail, but that's what we're doing when we're taking medication for our symptoms. Your symptoms are not because of a deficiency of medication. Now, you may need the medication for a while. Absolutely. Don't be silly. But you want to identify, and you don't ask, where's this coming from? You don't ask that question because there's 100 answers to where that symptom might be coming from. You ask the question, where is the inflammation coming from? Because you understand it's the inflammation pulling on the chain that's manifesting wherever your genetic weak link is. So you want to reduce the pull on the chain. It doesn't matter which links of your chain are weak. That's just where you're going to get the symptoms. What matters is stop pulling on the chain so hard. It's a paradigm shift. And when you start thinking this way, the answers are not immediate, but you develop, you develop a bullshit meter. So all of a sudden, no longer are you listening to, well, our CoQ10 is so much more effective than anyone else's, and here's the studies that it reduces blood pressure. Yeah, great. So if you have a deficiency of CoQ10, take some CoQ10. But that's not what caused the problem, right? Where is the inflammation coming from? And when you ask that question, that opens up an entire new line of thinking, an entire new direction of where you put your attention. Because you have to then learn, okay, what is inflammation? Mrs. Patient, your immune system is the armed forces in your body. It's there to protect you. There's an Army, a Navy, an Air Force, a Marines, a Coast Guard. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, cytokines. Lots of branches of the armed forces there to protect you. So normally they're dormant. You don't see them. They're kind of hanging around, but there's not much going on. But all of a sudden, you see a whole bunch of Army trucks with soldiers and rifles driving down the street. You say, whoa, is there a riot or something? What's going on here? I grew up in Detroit where we had the riots back in 1967. And there were Army vehicles on not every corner, but many. Whoa, what's this? But you ask the question, where is the inflammation coming from? So if your Immune system is the armed forces in your body there to protect you. And now your immune system is creating more inflammation. And that inflammation is pulling on the chain, manifesting in your body because of your genetic vulnerability. It manifests as Hashimoto's thyroid disease, or it manifests as recurrent Epstein-Barr infections and chronic fatigue, or it manifests as joint pain and rheumatoid arthritis, or it manifests as acne. Doesn't matter where it manifests. What matters is the pull on the chain. So when you get the symptoms, you ask the question, you start exploring with your doctor, where is the inflammation coming from that's causing these symptoms? That opens up a whole new line of thinking. Now you start looking at food sensitivities, heavy metal congestion, accumulation, like lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. Those kids are damaged for life, right? Because of lead in the water. You look at mold, you look at toxic thoughts, you look at toxic relationships, you look at all of these different. I'll give you an example. In 2016, that's the last time I did a docuseries. It was called Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you.
I remember that. Yeah. Hard to
Yes,
believe it was
yes.
that long ago. Wow.
Yes, I know. And one of the women that I interviewed in London, she said, you know, I took the tube to come here today. That's the underground train. And it's a 7-block walk to the hotel here where you're doing the interviews. And I walked. And she said, it's not a big deal, but it is. And then she got teary-eyed. And then we show you the pictures of her in a wheelchair 2 years earlier, and she can't walk. And she's got 7 lesions on her brain. And here she was today during the interview, no symptoms whatsoever, mountain biking, and she has 2 lesions left on her brain 2 years later, after seeing one of my friends in London. So that was in 2016. So I thought, you know, because I'm doing this event now called the Inflammation Equation. So I thought, I wonder what happened with Elmira. Did she regress and did her MS come back? Because that's what all the scientists say. Well, you can have a remitting, relapsing, that it goes into remission for a little while, but then it comes back. So I wonder what happened to her. So I reached out to her. She's mountain biking 3 times a week. She's 54, has 3 teenage kids, living life as grateful as can be. And it was nice to see that long-term benefit, you know. So I said to her, you know, you found the secret for you on reversing your disease completely. Congratulations. And she says, well, you know, if I go back to my old lifestyle, I start getting symptoms right away. So, you know, I have it in remission, which is really great. And I'm not on any medications and I feel so wonderful in life and I've got a great relationship and, you know, but it never goes away. It's just in remission. That's the weak link in my chain. And she used my language. And I said, I started laughing. I said, oh, that's great. So tell me, Elmira, what was the most difficult thing for you to do when you realized that you wanted to reduce the inflammation in your body? What was most difficult? And she looked down for a minute and then her eyes just opened up. And she said, toxic relationships. That caused so much stress for me. You know, so I never knew, you know, my husband, my ex-husband, you know, he's a wonderful man. He's not a toxic man, but we had a toxic relationship. And as I started getting better, I could see whenever I interacted with him that I'd get more stressed and, you know, because he traveled a lot and he wasn't home that often. But whenever he was home, I was more stressed and more symptoms come back. And I realized I couldn't be in this relationship anymore. And then she said, you know, I'm a classic ACE child. And I said, what do you mean by that? I mean, I know, but please tell our audience, what do you mean by that? Adverse childhood events. And she was a classic ACE adult. And can you explain what that means? And she said, yes, of course. And her mother died uh, no, wait. Her father died when she was 3. Her mother remarried, and her mother died when she was 9. Her stepfather died when she was 12.
Mm.
And she got bounced around through a number of foster homes. And those are adverse childhood events. And
Big ones.
she had no security whatsoever, right, in life. She
Yeah.
couldn't count on anybody. And so what kind of a man would she be attracted to partner with if she didn't deal with that buried emotional trauma and survival mechanisms that she developed? She would look for a relationship that she couldn't count on. It doesn't make
Mm.
sense rationally, but we're not
Right.
rational when we're thinking from our childhood patterns. It's not rational. And so she had this relationship and she developed MS, and for whatever reason, it was MS. And then when she realized that, and she divorced, and she said, "We're best friends now. We're best friends." And he's remarried and I'm remarried, and we still hang out. We're best friends. We have kids together. And she said, "But it was a toxic relationship." So it's not just lead poisoning. It's not just gluten sensitivity. It's not just electromagnetic pollution, putting earbuds in your ears, putting a battery next to your brain. You think that's harmless? Really? Read that little booklet that Apple gives you when you buy the earbuds and all that small print.
Oh
When you
yeah,
read that,
tiny font.
yeah, right, right. When you read that, you go, "Oh my God, really?" That's why I'm wearing a corded headset to talk to you, and why you've got
Yeah.
headphones on. Yes, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes,
I have
Those
people all the
AirPods
time
are
look at me.
crazy.
They're like, why are you dealing with those wires? I'm like, let me tell you, I'll deal
yes,
with tangled wires all day long, every day. It's worthwhile. Trust me.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's
So,
so much that we
yeah,
can't control, especially with EMFs. I'm like, if I can
right.
at least control what's going in my ears, that's one step ahead.
Exactly, exactly. And whenever I sign books, it's always the same. I ask the person their name, and I write that down, and I say, "Base hits win the ball game." It's all the little things you do that
Mm,
get you. See, for me, I think if people if they understood all of this science stuff, they would agree with the same goal that I have. My goal is that my healthy lifespan is very close to my total lifespan. And people say, "Well, wait, what?
yeah.
What do you mean?" Right now, 24% of a woman's life in the US is with disability. The last 20 some years of her life are with disabilities. 21% of a man's life is with disabilities. Total lifespan or total healthy life is gone. Not total. Healthy lifespan stops. Now you've got more life, but you're disabled. You're on medications. You can't walk up the stairs anymore. You can't dance with your granddaughter at her wedding, or your brain's not working the way that it should to process information. It doesn't matter what the symptoms are. Some are worse than others. So my goal is that my healthy lifespan is really close to my total lifespan. So that whenever my time comes, and I hope it's in my late 90s, because I want to shake it up on the dance floor at my son's wedding, but he's
Heck yeah.
3. He's 3 now, right? I'm 72, but so it's going to be a good 25 years before he gets married, if he does. But that's my vision, that's my goal. So I want my total lifespan to be really close, and my healthy lifespan to be really close to my total lifespan, so that the period of disability is not measurable. Ideally,
Yeah,
you go to
same.
sleep one night and you don't wake up. Ideally, that's the ideal. So that
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. Like Rose
yeah,
on the Titanic, right? She just went to
yeah,
sleep and
yeah,
didn't wake up. Yeah. I'm
yeah,
like, I want to be able to get up and off the floor. I want to be able to go to the bathroom by myself. I want to be able to cook my own
yes,
food. I don't want to rely on
yes,
anyone. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And to do that, all you have to do is monitor your inflammation level. Because anything you do in your life that's not supportive to your body, it's going to activate your immune system, trying to protect you, producing inflammation. So when you do the inflammatory markers, let me give you an example of this. Blue Cross Blue Shield published a paper in February of 2020. And they said, we've got a problem here. Now, this is after the government in 2018 said, you know what? Alzheimer's is going to bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid within the next 25 years. This is a huge problem. Well, the next year, Blue Cross Blue Shield comes out and says, we've got a real problem here. And they showed the numbers. In the previous 4-year period, there was a 407%, not 10%, not 50%, not 100%, not double, 407% increase in 4 years in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds.
Ooh, that's so young.
Exactly. This is the pandemic that nobody's talking about. And this is a wake-up call. I mean, that should have been on the front page of every paper in the country. Blue Cross Blue
Yeah, I
Shield.
didn't hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody did it because that's when the virus came out. Everybody focused on the virus, right? And the billions of dollars in profit if you got vaccinated. Go get your vaccination. Go get your vaccination. Make sure to get it. Make sure to bring everybody with you. You know.
Get your sticker.
Yeah, right.
Get your free donut.
So, yes, that's right. That's exactly right. So nobody has paid attention to this. But when you do the Neural Zoomer Plus blood test, and it's a finger prick blood test that Mayo Clinic says is highly accurate. The technology is 97 to 100%, right on the money every single time. The Neural Zoomer Plus blood test looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain. So when you have elevated inflammation markers in your brain, by definition, you're killing off more brain cells than you're making. Killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. And the result is you're 36 years old and say, oh, you know, I'm getting old. I don't remember the way I used to. Well, how old are you? Well, I'm 36. You know, I walked out into the parking lot of the shopping center and I forgot where I parked my car. You know, I'm just stressed. I'm too stressed. It's Australia kids. I'm just stressed. No,
I hear
your
that all
brain's
the
not
time.
working right. Yeah, your brain is not working right. Wake up, because you're killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. And I've done this now on a few podcasts that I offer to the hosts. If you guys want, go do the Neural Zoomer Plus blood test. You can do it on my site. You order it, they send you the finger prick, and you send it off to the lab. You've got your results within 10 days, 10 business days. If you do the Neural Zoomer Plus, I'll come back on and I'll interpret it for you. Most doctors don't know how to interpret it. They don't know how to interpret, because of what? Elevated antibodies to cerebellum? Well, what do you do about that? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, we were looking at a sample report before we jumped on, and I was like, I actually don't even know what some of these markers are. So
yes,
I'm very curious to do the test. And actually, a question, who should do the test? Do you think everyone needs to do it? Okay.
Everyone. Why? Because what you inhale goes directly up to the memory center of your brain. Your sense of smell. It's one of our ancestors' survival mechanisms. You know, before agriculture, about 10,000 years ago, our ancestors were nomads. They followed the herds for food. They always followed the herds. And they find their number one concern was food. Where are they going to get food? Number 2 was safety. Number 3, shelter. Number 4, reproduction. Now, some people, they've got it reversed a little bit. So, food was most important. So they'd find something on the ground. The first thing they do is they sniff it. Does it smell safe? Then they nibble at it. Then they eat it. The only nerves in the body, and I've said this to a few neurologists, and they go, oh, yeah, I remember hearing something about that. Well, do you know why? Well, no, I never thought about it. The only nerves in the body that go directly into the brain with no screen, no filter, no junctions that you have to get past. The only nerves in the body are the nerves of smell. They go right up past the memory center. So your ancestors walking down the trail, they better be able to smell saber-toothed tiger really quickly and turn around and go the other way. They better be able to smell if there's a problem with the food right away, or else they die.
Yeah.
They died. If they didn't have a good sense of smell, they were more likely to die. It was a survival mechanism. So those that had a good sense of smell, they passed those genetics on. And we all have that now. You think all these chemtrails that we've been looking at for years are safe? Really? We just don't know what to do about it, right? But you're inhaling all of that. Indoor air pollution is worse than outdoor air pollution in most areas of the country. Really? My air is fine. Really? Do you know that your sofa is outgassing flame retardant chemicals, or Scotchgard? It's outgassing Scotchgard stain resistant chemicals that are in your sofa. Your sheets and your blankets are outgassing flame retardant chemicals, and well, I wash my sheets. You wash them 50 times, they still outgas these chemicals in minute amounts. You can't smell them, you can't see them, you can't taste them, but you inhale them and you absorb them, and they accumulate over the years to the point, Chicago, 2016, 346 pregnant women in the 8th month of pregnancy. They did urine tests on them for phthalates, the chemicals used to mold plastic. They're in a category called endocrine or hormone disruptors. These phthalates disrupt how your hormones work. And so they checked all these pregnant women, how many phthalates do they have in their urine? And they put them into fourths, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest. They then waited 7 years, and the offspring of those pregnancies, when the children turned 7 years old, they reached back out and said, hi, it's time to do the IQ test on your child now. Wechsler IQ test, the official IQ test. Not much in medicine is all or every. This was every. Every child whose mother was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest category, every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower, 6.7 to 7.4 points lower. They were healthy kids, no major complaints, but their IQs were 7 points lower. Now, that doesn't mean anything to anyone until you understand a 1 point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7 point difference in IQ is the difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's in school. That child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling because their mom was high in phthalates during pregnancy. Now just go to Google and type in phthalates and neurogenesis, brain cell growth. Here come the studies. The higher the phthalate level, the more inhibition of nerve cell growth. Well, I don't have any phthalates. What do you think hardens nail polish? The phthalates from nail polish are in your bloodstream in 4 to 5 minutes. Now, there's no evidence that the amount of phthalates that leach into the body from nail polish application are toxic to humans. That's how they got away with this. Or the 168 chemicals that women put on their skin before they leave the house in the morning. That's the average between the shampoos and the makeup and the rouge and the
toner, the serum, the eye cream, the face cream,
exactly,
the foundation.
There you go. You've got it all. Well, there's no evidence that the amount of toxins that leach are absorbed through the bloodstream are toxic to humans. That's how they got away with it. It's called the Toxic Substance Control Act of 1976. That is the regulating guidelines at the federal level that no chemical company is ever going to allow a congressman or a senator to mess with. They spend millions of dollars every year to make sure nobody messes with the TSCA, Toxic Substance Control Act, because you have to prove that the amount of chemical you're exposed to by your furniture outgassing chemicals into the air, or your blankets or your sheets outgassing flame retardant into the air, you have to prove that that amount of chemical is toxic to humans within 24 hours. That's the legislation that has no teeth.
Wow.
Because it's not, but it's accumulative in the body. It's accumulative.
Yeah.
So now give me a little girl that's painting her 10 little fingers and 10 little toes once a week for 25 years. She starts at 5 years old. Now she's 30. She wants to get pregnant. And hopefully she has a healthy pregnancy, uneventful delivery. But now baby is 7 years old and mom was in the highest category of phthalates. This baby's brain never developed in utero properly. And women don't know this. You don't know how toxic you are because of all these chemicals. In the European Union, there are over 10,000 chemicals that are not allowed in any form whatsoever in the European Union. In the United States, there are 12. That's the toxic.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It's a joke. You want to know why? There's a 407% increase in Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds in 4 years. This is why. The amount of chemicals that have been accumulating in your body at different ages are much higher than the amount of chemicals that accumulated in my body at the same age. Right? Every generation's accumulating more chemicals because mom's been accumulating them, passing them on to the baby. And then the baby grows up in this more chemical world, more exposures, more toxins. They absorb more of this. So now every autoimmune disease is going up 4 to 9% a year. Every one of them, every year, 4 to 9%. Alzheimer's, 407% increase in 4 years in 30 to 44-year-olds. This is like, what? What?
I saw a headline the other day. It said if you were born after 1965, you are now aging faster than the generation before.
And this is why. This is why. It's the amount of toxins that you're exposed to, and your immune system trying to protect you is creating inflammation to kill the toxins.
And then that's creating autoimmune?
It pulls on
Is that the
the chain. Yeah, exactly. It pulls on the chain. The inflammation pulls on the chain. And wherever your weak link is, that's where the autoimmune mechanism occurs. Alzheimer's is an autoimmune disease. Cardiovascular is an autoimmune disease. I wrote a chapter in 2 different cardiovascular textbooks used in medical schools right now. And the idea that atherosclerosis is a fat storage disease was disproven in 1986. It's an inflammatory disease. It's inflammation that causes your pipes to plug up, that causes the #1 cause of death. It's inflammation. It's always inflammation, without exception. So where it's going to manifest is just dependent on your genetics. There's 2 things. It's your genetics and your antecedents, which is a geek word that means how you live your life. You eat tuna fish 3 times a week, you likely have mercury toxicity because tuna's got mercury in it. That's an antecedent. So it's the genetic weak links and the antecedents that determine where the weak link is when you pull at the chain too hard. See, this is basic 101 that every patient needs to know. Every doctor needs to think from this concept. And they're not. They're all chasing the tail of the symptoms to get the person feeling better. But the result, 4 to 9% increase in every autoimmune disease every year, 407% increase in diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds, and I can go on and on and on with the science. But I think you get the message. It's always inflammation. So if you guys do the NeuroZoomer Plus, and you can invite your followers to do it with you, and then we'll have a session in a couple of months, because it takes a while to ship it, to you, and then get the test results back. Then I'll come back on and we'll interpret the test, and you'll do an OMG, that especially if you have a family history of any cognitive decline or dementia, especially for those people.
Yeah,
Because-
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely want to do that. And I want to pick your brain a little bit more about the testing, but I can't stop thinking about this analogy of like when we see an accident on the road, like how many people start to slow down because they want to see like how the fire started, but we're
Yes.
not paying attention to that in our bodies. And I think it's because we don't have time for it. We say we don't have time to be inflamed or be sick or tired. So we do all these things to suppress it. I also see that in effort to clean up our environment, like do things that are more environmentally friendly, we're harming our body, where it should be things that are good for the planet should be good for our body, but it's not that. We're recycling these plastics, we're wearing them.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the nails on all the women is just
Yeah,
it's out of control.
the plastic storage containers that you store leftover food in the kitchen. The next day, the chicken's got phthalates in it. Get
But
glass.
it's not convenient to
get
have
glass
glass,
storage
you know?
containers.
Yeah.
Get the glass,
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many little things like that. And that's the event that I've just put together. It's called the inflammation equation, decoding the path to optimal well-being. Everyone's overwhelmed. Everyone's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It took me 2
Yeah.
months to come up with the title. It did 2 months.
Oh, really? It's
Yeah,
great.
because-
It's great.
Yeah, because it's accurate. Decoding. I'm going to decode for you because it's so overwhelming when you hear about this and this and this and that. What do you do? Where do you start? How do you begin?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
begin by asking the question, what is my immune system trying to protect me from?
What is it
And
trying
when
to
you-
tell me?
Yeah, and when you answer that question, oh, really? I've got it. My immune system is fighting dairy? Really? Well, I love cheese. But all right, well, if my immune system, maybe I should just give it up for a while and see how I feel and see what my repeat blood tests tell me. Dale Bredesen, Dr. Bredesen is the father of Alzheimer's treatment. I mean, just a great, great guy. And his books, The End of Alzheimer's and a number of others, are just great. He tells us that if you look at an abandoned factory and the windows have been kicked out and there's gang graffiti on the walls and you got 36 holes in the roof, and so when it rains, there's puddles on the floor inside, and just a mess in there. That's your brain with Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
So there's never going to be a pill to fix that. There can't be. It's ridiculous to think there is. You have to fix the 36 holes in the roof. You have to check your homocysteine level. You have to look at your insulin resistance versus insulin sensitivity. You have to look at your food sensitivities. You have to look at your air. Are you breathing toxic air? I mean, there are 36 holes in the roof that you have to fix. That's how he reverses Alzheimer's. And he's got hundreds of doctors that are trained in what he calls the RECODE system. They're trained to look for all this stuff. And then you start taking care of them one by one by one. But that's highly advanced. So for the general population, the inflammation equation is a free online event by which you learn, wow, I just need to ask some questions here for my daughter or for my son. Like, wow, where is the inflammation coming from here? Could it be that my son has a food sensitivity that's affecting this, right? So when you watch the inflammation equation and you go to the inflammationequation.com/biohacker, and when you watch the inflammation equation, you start understanding what kind of questions have to be answered. And it is overwhelming because there's lots of things that may be the case. Like I talked about Elrina and toxic relationships as an example. There's a lot, but the goal here is base hits win the ball game. And what we tell patients, look, just take 1 hour a week, just 1 hour a week. And you tell your family, look, every Tuesday night after dinner, don't bother me. I'm going to spend an hour to learn more how to be healthier. And then you go back and you learn about glass storage containers, and here's the URLs for glass storage containers. And you go to Miles Kimball, or you go to Amazon, or you go to that, whatever the third one was, I don't remember. And you say, well, those are okay. Oh, I like those. And you order 3 round ones, 2 square ones, and 1 for the pie. You pay with your credit card, you hit send. It took you an hour, but you're done.
Yeah.
Never will you poison your family again with minute amount of poisons that accumulate in their bodies from plastic storage containers, right? And
yeah,
then
that's an easy swap.
Yeah, and the next week you do the nails, nail polish. You find organic, phthalate-free nail polish. And the next week you do makeup, and that may take a few hours to go through because there's so many different kinds of makeup that you like, and it's very personal. But you just take them one at a time. And in 6 months, you've turned this around. You've completely turned this around. And your friends who haven't seen you in a while say, wow, you look great. What happened to you? Oh, well, I got the phthalates out of my kitchen, and I've changed out my nail polish, and I've got houseplants in every room because houseplants absorb 78%, 94% of the toxins in the air. What? Houseplants? Yeah, NASA did the studies on that. They absorb 94% of the toxins in the air. And so I learned what houseplants to get, and I got them, and your friends just look at you and they're overwhelmed by what you've summarized that you've done in the last 6 months at 1 hour a week. That's how you're successful at this.
That's
Yeah,
great
thank you.
advice. I love that. 1 hour a
Baby
week.
steps are very empowering. Yeah,
Yes.
excellent. So starting to clean up the lifestyle, and then we have the test, which we're going to do. We're going to have you back on, but I'm curious, in addition to the neural zoomer, which we're looking at antigens, antibodies, anything else in like a blood test that you would look at, any other proteins or compounds like homocysteine,
Oh, yes.
ESR, anything else that's
You
really
bet.
important?
You bet. Someone in Croatia reached out to me, and yes, so I work with people, about 1 person every 2 weeks, and they have to get through my staff. And I want 5 years of their health history and the tests they've done, and I review all that stuff. I spend a lot of time reviewing, then we talk, and I make test recommendations. There are some tests that are now for me. I won't talk to a person if they don't do these tests, because you either want to get well or you won't. Now, if a test comes back negative, I really didn't do my job well, right? You shouldn't be spending money for you do tests. It's not blind shotgun in the dark. It's really, all right, with this history, you probably should do this. There's 5 to 7 tests usually, but there's a couple that we've never had, or hardly, there have been a couple normals that come back, but extremely rare, and they're so helpful. The first one is NeuroZoomer Plus. The next one is Total Tox Burden. Same lab, because you find out about mold and heavy metals and organophosphates and chemical accumulation and phthalates that accumulate in your body. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful test.
That's Vibrant Wellness,
yes,
correct? For our audience,
yes,
if they want to know.
Yes, and the wheat zoomer. It's the most comprehensive test for sensitivity to wheat and for leaky gut. It does both. And leaky gut is the gateway in the development of every autoimmune disease. And so when you do those few tests, you do the total tox burden, the wheat zoomer, and the neural zoomer plus, you've got a good basis to start from. You really understand, okay, these are the majors. Deal with these majors. Lots of minors. Everybody's got some minor problems with this or with that, but it's the majors. If you can reduce the amount of gasoline on the fire from the majors, if you can reduce that, then the inflammation comes down. And there could be something unusual that we have to look at. Like some people have lectin sensitivity. If you ever read the book, The Plant Paradox, some people have lectin sensitivity that holds back there's a, with the family we were with yesterday, the woman, she's a very lovely, lovely person, and yoga teacher, and she's doing everything to be so healthy, meticulous diet, meticulous environment, and I recommended someone to her for hypnosis, because in a hypnosis state, when you feel really safe and secure, new ideas start to come up, new realizations can pop up that you say, well, where'd that come from? Well, that's true. No, that did happen. Or I'll check with my mother. And she said, yeah, that did happen. But you remember these things that you didn't remember. And she said, well, what do you think? And when I explained to her about inflammation and how it's always pulling on the chain. So she said, but I do all of this. I do this and this and this and this and this. I said, yeah, you're doing everything perfectly. So where's the emergency brake? And she looked at me. I said, look, if you back out of the driveway and you say, this car's moving, but it's not moving very, very well. What's wrong? Oh, the emergency brake. And you let go of the emergency brake, then you back up just fine, right? So I said, you've got some emergency brakes. You've got some emergency brakes. And she just looked, because you're doing everything perfectly. Where do you think the emergency brakes might be? You're a very educated woman. Where do you think they might be? And she said, in my emotions. And I said, in the immortal, I'm from Chicago originally, in the immortal words of Rosanna Dana, you think? And then we were laughing. And so I recommended some hypnosis to bring up in a very safe environment some of this past stuff, like Elrina talked about, toxic relationships. And but there's always emergency brakes. And I brought this example up because you do those 3 tests, the neural zoomer plus, the wheat zoomer, and the total tox burden, you've got a really good overview. And sometimes there are emergency brakes that you still have to address. It's not perfect every time, but it gives you the big kahunas. It tells you where you likely have to begin.
I love that analogy. Okay. Because I feel like I do a lot. Like I eat well, I exercise, I sleep well, I manage my stress, but I'm sure there are some emergency breaks that I am missing.
Yes.
So I'm excited to do the test
For
and
all of
see.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think I could feel even better than I feel.
Yes. Yeah. This is really, I call it the 101. And for people that don't know that, if you go to university, the introductory course is in English 101. And after you take that, then you take 102, and then you take 103 and 104, and then you go on to your second year and like that. This is 101 in healthcare. Where is the inflammation coming from? It's 101, and it's required for anyone that wants to shorten the gap between healthy lifespan and total lifespan. Because you're killing off cells right now. You're killing them off faster than you're making them. That's what disease is. But you don't get symptoms until you've killed off enough cells, the tissue can't function properly anymore. Now you got cold hands and feet. It's hard to get up in the morning. Wish you had 20 more minutes in bed. You feel kind of slow and sluggish. And your doctor does a test, and you got Hashimoto's thyroid disease. You didn't just get Hashimoto's. It started years and years ago, usually 7 years before there was ever a symptom. So you want to identify where is the inflammation coming from. That's the 101. And you go to the inflammationequation.com/biohack.
Great. And that goes live May 13th?
May 13th.
Perfect. So, and this episode comes out May 13th. So if you are listening today, head on over. Perfect timing.
Right.
Couldn't have planned that better. Dr. Tom, thank you so much for sharing so much with our audience today. We just want to ask one final question from you. If you can tell our audience one piece of advice that they should do right away today to optimize their health, what would that be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure the most important, but for lifestyle change, we've all seen the pyramid of how we're supposed to eat. right? That the government puts out every once in a while. There's
Oh,
that
yeah.
pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is all garbage. But there's a new pyramid that came out from some Italian researchers a couple years ago. It's called the Mediterranean gluten-free diet. And it's just remarkable. And I'm not recommending everyone go gluten-free. Do the test, and then you'll see why it's a good idea. But the very bottom, it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody put this on a pyramid. The very bottom of the pyramid, water, hydration, hydration. When you understand that you're inflamed because you've been accumulating toxins over the years, whether it's phthalates from nail polish or organophosphates in the food that you eat, wherever it is, when you understand that this is an accumulative problem that you're dealing with, well, how do I get rid of this stuff? You never, ever detox until you are fully hydrated, because you start mobilizing some of this stuff and you don't have good elimination, you don't have excellent hydration to flush this stuff out, you recycle it right into your brain. And you get more inflammation in your brain, killing off brain cells. So it's 1/3 of an ounce of water per pound body weight. And if you are sweating extensively, like you're doing saunas for detox, which is a good idea, or you're exercising aggressively and sweating a lot, then it's 1/2 ounce per pound body weight. But a minimum is 1/3 of an ounce per pound body weight. So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do, everybody goes to the bathroom. That's usually the first thing. Next, go out and get a big glass of water. I put a scoop of Vitality C. You'll find it on my website if you want. It's great product, Vitality C. I've used it for 30 years. I put a scoop of Vitality C in my water and my wife's glass of water, and that's 4,000 milligrams. And it's alkaline base. It doesn't upset your stomach. It's got ribose, which is essential for your mitochondria to produce more energy. And we start our day with 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a big glass of water. That's how you start your day. That just gets the ball going. It gets everything going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great. I can't imagine not waking up to a huge glass of water. It just,
it makes a difference, doesn't
I
it?
crave it. Oh, yeah. There's no other way. No other way.
Yeah.
And if 5 years ago, if you couldn't have imagined that you would say that now today, but because you did it and you see the benefits, and on days that you forget to do it, you notice pretty soon that, oh man, I didn't drink any water today. Oh gosh. Okay. And that's why I feel the way that I do. It's like the dimmer switch. You just get dimmed down when your body doesn't have everything it needs.
Yeah.
You have
definitely
to
feel it.
try it to feel it, to believe it.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with our audience today. You have so many amazing resources. Where should people start? Where can they find more of you, and where should they look first?
When you go to the inflammationequation.com/biohack, you register, and then I give you a gift right away. So that right there, as soon as you register, you've got the full 1-hour interview with Fran Drescher, the nanny. And, Fran had uterine cancer, and she's a 24-year survivor. And she said, I asked my oncologist, who now is my best friend, I said, why did this happen? She said, oh, we don't know. It just did. And Fran said, I didn't accept that. And so I decided to devote my fame not to raising money for cancer research, but rather to raise awareness of where cancer comes from. And so she founded Cancer Schmancer. And she has events, and she just teaches people about the toxicity of the world we're living in. And she talks about what's already in your body, what you put on your body, and what's around your body. And she doesn't have Bronx accent of hers.
Yeah.
And then she starts laughing, and you have belly laughter when you're listening to her, and then tears at other times. But she's just fabulous. And so I give you the gift of the entire Fran interview right away, because it gets you thinking right away. And when she talks about toothpaste, she says, why would anyone ever give their children or themselves toothpaste that says right on the label, warning, do not swallow. If swallowed, call National Poison Control Center. And she says,
Yeah.
"What's the matter with you?" And then she starts laughing.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
good way to get the message across. Our dad's a biological dentist, so we hear that one a lot. It's good. It's like, why this idiocy? It's wild, but
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
Fran for so many reasons, for all of her health advocacy, but I'm also a performer, and she's done amazing work at protecting actors. So I love her
You'll see
so
in the
much.
interview.
Aw.
I acknowledged her. I said, "Fran, you're the president of the Screen Actors Guild." She says, "Oh, yes." And I said, "And you
I didn't know that.
you beat out all of these movie studio bigwig $1,000 an hour attorneys. You won." "Yes, we did." "How did you do it? How did you handle the stress?" And she looked at me and she said, "I would only talk to them in my night robe, in my bathroom, on my Chase lounge with my teeth. That's the only time I would talk to them."
Oh my gosh.
That's how she dealt with these heavy hitting attorneys that are $1,000 an hour. She
Wow.
just took them out of their corporate world, and you have to come into Fran's world, right?
That's awesome. Good for
Gosh,
her.
I love her. I love
And
her.
and then she looked in the camera. She said, "That's how you protect yourself, with that same focus. You must protect yourself." And then she starts talking about the toxins in the air and the toxins in your home. And you go, "Wow, good, I'm in. I got it. I got it." So that's why I made Fran's interview, the full interview, for everyone as soon as you register, because you'll start thinking about, wow, all right, I need to take a look at some of this stuff right away.
Awesome. I
It's
can't
so
wait to
cool.
watch that. Thank you for
Great.
sharing that.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, so everyone scroll down in the show notes. We'll have all the links for you so it's easy to find. And May 13th, it'll be a big day. And congratulations to you. It's a huge project and it's really, really awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support, and Godspeed to everyone out there on your own health journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for spending your time with us today. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time.